So, welcome to the Eating Disorder Therapist podcast. I'm Harriet Frew, eating disorder therapist, here to support you in overcoming disordered eating and finding peace with food. So, thank you so much for being here today. Today, I have a guest on the show, and I'm talking to Paula D Atkinson, all the way from Palm Springs in California. Who is
Another
a
planet.
psychotherapist, professor of body justice, author, and supporter of people navigating eating disorders, food obsession, and internalized body stigma. So her practice is anti-diet, health every size, and body liberation focused. And she loves infusing humor and creativity into tough conversations. I love it. So Paula recently appeared on Jubilee Media's surrounding Jillian Michaels series, challenging conventional health narratives. And she has her own podcast, What If Nothing's Wrong With You, where she unpacks how traditional therapy sometimes reinforces the very systems that create suffering. So in today's episode, Paula is going to share a bit about her own recovery, her academic background in fat studies, her experiences in speaking to Gen X women and LGBTQIA plus focus, and more. So much to talk about. So stay
Yeah,
tuned for an inspiring conversation, and welcome Paula to the podcast.
thank you so much. You said all that so beautifully. Yes, thank you.
It's a bit of a tongue twister sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, Paula, before we came on line, we were just talking about how you just got back from a trip to the UK. So, yeah,
Yeah.
so just tell the listeners a little bit about that.
Oh, it was so fun. Well, I'd been to London since, but when I was a kid, when I was in my 20s, I traveled all around the UK and all around Europe. And I just remember going to Edinburgh for the first time. And I was just blown, coming from the States, we don't have a lot of pretty cities. I think San Francisco is beautiful. I think, New York is beautiful, but like that's insane. It's so beautiful. And everything's just so old. And I don't think we have anything like that in the United States either. We don't have a lot of old things. We're very young. So it was just lovely to be there and be in the green. It was warmer than I wanted, though. It was like 85 on 85 in Fahrenheit, obviously, the day I got to Edinburgh, and the Scots were losing their minds. It was all anybody could talk about.
Yeah, we don't do well with the heat in the
No,
UK.
no, 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 not at all. Yeah, and then I got sunburned in London, which I was like, nobody has ever said that. I got sunburned in London.
Yeah, no, sure. You probably did pick the unique week of the year. So, yeah.
What it was so warm. Yes, yeah. I mean, it was nice to walk around. It was a lot cooler than where I live, but still, it was. I was hoping for some rain. I didn't use my umbrella once.
We haven't had rain here for a while, actually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you're from Palm Springs in the beautiful desert in California,
Yes,
yeah. So
yes,
you were just saying as well, it's super hot this time of year, and
yeah.
sure,
Very warm. Very warm.
yeah. And are you a big fan of the desert? Do you kind of like that whole
Well,
environment?
I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and then I lived in New York City and Washington, D.C. for about 20 years. And then I didn't, it's funny, I feel like it's sort of like onions or beer that you, with the desert, where you don't really like it when you're a kid and you don't really see the appeal. And then somehow as you get older, you're like, oh, wait, I see the beauty. So now my partner and I moved here, it'll be 3 years ago at the end of August, and we just love it. We love the dry air. I mean, after Washington, D.C., which is so humid, we love the dry air. We like it gets real quiet in the summer because it's so hot, and so we kind of like that it becomes a little bit of a ghost town, and only the diehards are around all summer long. So yeah, we really like it now. It's really beautiful. It's not for
Yeah.
everybody, but it's really beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for sharing. I think it's just nice to kind
Yeah,
of get a bit of a sense of the ambience of where you
yeah, yeah,
are.
yeah. Yep, yep.
And I guess you have really good air conditioning, do you?
We do. The air conditioning is a religion here and then a lot of us have solar panels. So, because all we
Sure.
have is sun. It rains maybe 5 or 6 times a year here. So,
Oh,
at the most. So, yeah, we all have solar panels, and the solar energy goes right into the air conditioning. It's just a just a closed loop.
yeah, no, amazing. Okay. So, Paula, you've had your own journey, haven't you, with
Yeah.
food and body image, and you've been in different sized bodies. And I understand you nearly died from anorexia, is that right, in the late 90s?
Correct. Yeah.
But then you are now working, as a psychotherapist and, doing all this activist work and all kinds of things. So can you just tell us a little bit about your journey and how you sort of use that sort of whole wounded healer experience to do what you're doing today?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was born a big kid. Like I was 10 pounds when I was born, almost 11 pounds when I was born. And I just remember being a chubby kid and I didn't really understand, I think part of my activism work is that I couldn't, and I still don't understand why the grown-ups were so obsessed with the shape of my body because I wasn't overeating. I was an active kid. I was fine. But this was the 70s and 80s. So everybody was really concerned about my body. And I just remember kind of not being until they kind of taught me to be. And then I did start overeating. I talk about it and I've written a book and trying to get it published. And I talk about this sort of very innocent experience of not really understanding why everybody was accusing me of overeating because my body was big. And then eventually I did start overeating. Eventually I did, it's sort of like the detention to prison pipeline, right? It's like, oh, well, if you tell a kid they're bad, they're going to be bad. And then I started dieting in my teens, and then it did not take long for it to become full-blown anorexia. And then by the time I was in college, at the age of 21, I almost died. My body was shutting down. I was so thin. I didn't have any muscle mass. I couldn't walk. And so I went to treatment. I was in treatment for a year, which is a really long time to be in treatment. And then got out and then, taught yoga for a long time. I wanted to be a therapist, but I had promised myself I would never work with eating disorders because, we are a special kind of crazy. It's a complicated disease, as you know. So I told myself I was never going to work with eating disorders. That sounds terrible. And then I had been working at a drug and alcohol treatment center. So I've been working with addictions. And every time, as you know, there's so much overlap with addictions and food issues and body hatred. And whenever one of the other clinicians had a client who was struggling with food and body issues, I would become ragingly possessive. and I was like, the passion that came out of me was irrational, shall we say. And so it became obvious to me that, the universe had other plans. And so when I started my own private practice, I started working with eating disorders. And then I started teaching at George Washington University. I was given this class called Weight and Society. And it had been kind of a fluffy class about like weight and how to stay at a healthy weight. And I took it and I turned it into a social justice class, and it became a body justice class. And so that sort of influenced the way I treated body hatred and disordered eating. And then the class, and then these two things just sort of built on each other until now that's all I can talk about, and I won't shut up about it.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like you say, the universe kind of had other plans for you, really.
Yes,
And
very much
yeah.
so. Yep. Yep. I couldn't stay away. I couldn't.
It sounds like a really lovely compliment, actually, to be doing the academic research and
Yes.
teaching, and then also working as a therapist. Because I guess you're sort of really keeping your finger on the pulse, actually, of everything.
Yes. I love the way you said that. Yeah. I think it was so brilliant and it all sort of landed in my lap. I didn't mean to, but it was such an incredible way to stay on top of the latest research around health at every size, around actual measures of health, around the damage that fat phobia does to our brains and our bodies, and the intersection of white supremacy and capitalism and classism and misogyny and fat phobia, and how all of these things are kind of the same thing in different costumes. It was really brilliant. And I miss it. I don't teach it anymore because since I moved from Washington, D.C. to California, I don't teach the class. And I do miss sort of that, my mom used to say, you teach what you want to learn. I miss that feeling of having read the latest article about it. So now I have to I have to be a little bit more motivated and inspired to seek out the research.
Sure. Yeah, no, sure. But I guess there's going to be always ongoing demand for these classes, virtually or
Absolutely.
whatever.
Virtually, yes. And I've taught a lot of, since I've been here, I teach a lot of like trainings for clinicians. I've taught for students at, huge universities who are in the health and wellness departments or stuff like that. So I've taught like online trainings, but I do miss sort of the university feel of going on campus and being with the students in the classroom and all of that. I miss that.
Yeah, and I can imagine actually. So say a bit more about that course then in terms of some of the topics that you really dived into.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you some of my favorite classes to teach, like the favorite, class sessions. One was the history of dieting was fascinating, still fascinating, and I feel like it's such a important thing to have in my consciousness in terms of how it started and the intersection of the Industrial Revolution and advertising and magazines, also the intersection of dieting with in the United States with sort of this opening up, like we decided that there was no more slavery, quote unquote, although it shows itself in other ways, as we know, and there was a way in which white supremacy needed to kind of go underground, and fat phobia sort of just slipped into its place in a way that people of purely European descent could distinguish themselves from people who had been the descendants of people of African descent. And so that's all fascinating. So that was the history of dieting and all of the bizarre ways in which humans have been convinced to spend money on ways to make our bodies be shapes that our bodies probably don't want to be is just fascinating. And it was fun to teach because I always feel as though touching on the absurdity of fat phobia and thin worship, I feel like it's sort of like stand-up comedians do, right? They touch on the absurdity and you get the message in such a different way when something is presented to you through humor and absurdity. And when you look at these ads from 1930s, 1940s, and you realize it's the same thing you would see today, just with a little bit different wording, or you start to recognize that, like, oh, this has always been a scam. This has always been a scam, and that was always fun. That was always very, I guess, satisfying to present to the class.
Yeah, and I'm sure. And I guess as well, just like teaching, like a lot of people at university as well are like young people, aren't they? So
Absolutely.
being able to really influence the mindset of another generation that's felt really empowering.
It was, and I think you will probably understand this, that when I first started teaching the class, it was 2012, I believe, was my first semester, and I think a lot of the children thought that I was absolutely crazy, which is fine. I get that a lot. But then as it progressed and we got more into the body positivity movement, and honestly the influence of social media, I know we talk a lot about how social media is bad and terrible and evil, but it's also profound in that we are creating our own content. Not all the content that we see, like I was talking about with magazines and stuff, goes through, has to be okayed by a rich white man at the head, the CEO of Sony Pictures or whatever. And so it was fascinating to see that the students at first, the first couple of years I taught it, they were like, I mean, whatever, this lady's out of her mind. But then the students started teaching me a lot. And then they would be like, oh, have you heard of this fat positive influencer? Have you heard of this person who's doing this work? So then it became really, towards the end of my time, it became much more collaborative with the students. And it became much more, my partner jokes and says that everything I do turns into group therapy, which might be true. But it became much more of a collaborative class. It became much more of a class where the students were talking about their own experiences and talking about their own things that they've read around the topics of body liberation and the history of body positivity, etc. So it was really cool to sort of see generationally the switch happen.
Yeah, no, that's incredible actually, isn't it? And I think I definitely find some of my like younger clients, like Gen Zs and stuff, I mean, they're so well educated on these topics, aren't they? And I think
Totally.
so much more just embracing diversity and, all of those good
Absolutely.
things.
Yes.
But then I think as well, it's one thing, isn't it, knowing it on a rational level, but it's another
Yeah.
thing really embodying it because it's sort of these messages are so insidious, aren't they? And so
Insidious.
oh
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure you hear this from your clients. I hear it all the time, right? Like that's good for other people, but for me, I have to be skinny, or for me, I have to be under a certain weight or stuff like that. So yeah, I think there's more information around all of it and around the absurdity of body ranking and body hierarchies. But yes, there still is the need to be thin in order to show virtue or show that they are a valid person. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what about in your sort of psychotherapy practice? Do you work
Hmm.
with people with all kinds of eating disorders, all
Hmm.
different issues, or is that quite diverse?
It's very diverse. Yes. So I work with people who are on all. I tend to say some version of all that, and I'm sure you experience this too. That all disordered eating is basically the same. It just
Yeah.
manifests in different ways depending on sometimes which way the wind blows. Uh, so I tend to work with a lot of people who have been maybe dieting their whole lives. I tend to, I as I've progressed, I tend to identify as a disordered eating therapist, or actually, I prefer to say a body hatred therapist, because I think body hatred is such a broad term, and I think so many people can relate to that,
Yeah.
rather than, as you know, there's so few people who are diagnosably within the throes of an eating disorder, although there are a lot of people who hate their bodies and do all sorts of weird things with food. So, I have clients, like I run a group that's specifically for fat people, people who identify as fat, people who live in large bodies, people who experience bias based on the shape of their body. And then I have clients who have been dieting their whole lives. I feel as though, and I'm not sure if you feel this way too. I feel as though lately I've become sort of like the last house on the block of people have tried other things. People have tried maybe Overeaters Anonymous 10 years ago, maybe this, maybe that. And I didn't mean to, but I think I become sort of like, well, this is the last ditch effort. And then I throw the whole book at him. I'm like, well, this is all nonsense and we're not doing this anymore. Just eat whatever you want. I tend to just go balls to the wall with it.
Oh. And it sounds like you say, you use quite a lot of humor and creativity in your work. So can you say a bit more about that as well? Because I think we were talking earlier about what you're saying, using absurdity almost and just coming at it
Yes.
from a different angle. It's a powerful way, isn't it, of getting messages across?
I think, yeah, yes. I mean, I didn't mean to do that, but I think I mean, I am an artist, and I've taught the book The Artist's Way by
Yeah.
Julie Cameron. Yeah, so I've taught The Artist's Way for 25 years. So I tend to have this sort of this side, and I just think as we get older, everything sort of comes together. That we try to keep things separate, but they just all come together. Yeah, I do, and I think also what happened in my own experience, and so I can't help but treat people from this perspective, is that you recognize that body hatred and food issues, it really is a question of our relationship with ourselves. It
Yeah.
really all comes down to how much we are willing to continue to abandon ourselves, So I
Yeah.
do tend to have a spiritual or an woo woo humorous kind of vibration to it. I'm also an Aquarius, so I tend to have this sort of vibration to it all, because I was a member of Overeaters Anonymous for many years, and then it didn't really resonate with me anymore. But I think a lot of it is really magical. And one of the things they say that I hear in my mind a lot is, it's about the food until it's not about the food. Like
Yeah.
it's about starvation, it's about what you ate yesterday, until it's not. And then you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, and it really is about the abandonment of oneself, right? It really is about how much we can harm or punish ourselves in a in this sort of desperate attempt to earn belonging or love or acceptance from other people. So, you know, I don't usually throw that out to people on our first session. But, you know, after a while, it's like we can keep talking about how much you weigh, but like it's never really
Yeah.
about that, you know?
Yeah, no, it's so true, isn't it? It's the tip of the iceberg, isn't it, really? And I think
Absolutely.
when you come for this sort of help that you don't really realize, do you? You kind of think it's all about the food and the weight,
Oh,
don't you?
sure.
And
Of
it's
course.
yeah, and that's kind of where you start, isn't it? And then you start to
Isn't
peel
it?
back the layers of the onion almost. Yeah,
Always, always, right? And I think
yeah,
that's why I think that there are parts of the 12 steps I love so much because they talk about how it's all, and you know, I may not want to admit it all the time, but it's all a spiritual malady to a certain extent, right? It's all a mind, body, spirit thing to, you know, it's all again about my relationship with myself. It's not really about the fact that my thighs are too big or whatever. It's like it's about how willing I am to love and be on my side and be on my body's side no matter what.
yeah. It's so true, isn't it? I mean, I sort of think about my clients, and I think anyone that's got poor body image has always got a raging inner critic, haven't they? And then I just think,
Oh my
you know,
gosh,
it's just
absolutely.
projected on the body, isn't it? It's such an obvious
Absolutely.
thing to put it all on the
So
body,
obvious.
isn't it, in the culture?
Yeah, I one of my teachers said something about like, well, isn't it convenient to have the body to carry all of your self-loathing, right? To carry all of these ways in which you think that you're not good enough. It's so it's so convenient to have this sort of concrete thing that I'll just mold into an acceptable version so I don't have to look at all of the very ambiguous things that you know are ways in which we're taught to dislike ourselves or judge ourselves or criticize ourselves, right? It's easy to have this concrete thing that I'll just keep trying to fix. The problem
Yeah.
is there's no, you know, and that's kind of what I was saying with the diet ads of the last 100 years. It's always been this, right? It's always been you just have to fix it, you just have to fix it. And you know, when you look at those ads from the 30s and 40s, then you're like, oh wait, this is always there's no finish line. There's no there. You're never allowed to rest. No one's allowed to rest. No one's allowed to enjoy their body. No one's allowed to like their body, right? And then once you really take that in, you're like, oh, well then let's give up. Let's stop. This is so boring. I mean, that's one of the things I say to clients too. Like, aren't you bored? Aren't you bored with this? It's so boring.
Yeah, no, I really share that perspective actually. I always kind of think like, you know, it's a low vibe conversation. You know, you were not put on this earth,
Yes.
were you, to
Oh
like,
my gosh.
you know,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, it's a very low vibration conversation. Yes. And now I'm sure you feel this way too. Now I can, if I meet someone new and they start talking about calories or something, it's like, oh God, these are not my people. These are not people who are dedicated to having a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, so true. And how are you navigating all the sort of GLP-1s and everything? So I'm sure like you must be working with some people that are using the
Yep.
GLPs or
Yep.
yeah. So how are you sort of navigating through all of that?
I mean, it's complicated. I'm sure you feel
Mm.
this way too. It's very complicated. I'm not against them. That's a
Mm.
silly idea, right? Like that I
Yeah,
believe, you know, body liberation first and foremost is that everybody's allowed to do whatever they want with their body, right?
yeah,
Um, I do have clients who have found them infinitely helpful, which I think
yeah,
is great. I again like that's fantastic. You know, the idea that everybody should be on them is a bizarre idea because there's no medicine on earth that everybody should be on. Like, what a
yeah,
silly idea. I get a little Aquarius about it because I think it's fantastic. I think it's fascinating and interesting that a lot of people have food issues, food noise, obsession with food because of prior starvation, which is a problem that capitalism created. And then capitalism provides a cure for that. You know, it's like it's all somebody's making money. No matter what we're doing, somebody's making money, you know. So
yeah,
I can get really profound around it like that. I worry about people's bodies, about you know people who are taking them who don't have diabetes or
yeah,
don't have a history of hormone issues, right? no, not everybody should be on any sort of hormone replacement therapy, which is what GLPs ones are. So I worry about what it's going to look like in a few years. I also feel like I can't help but feel like I've lived through a lot of these. Like I lived through gastric bypass, I lived through fen-phen, I've lived through, it's like,
Yeah.
again, like capitalism is always going to come up with this way in which it's going to cure the problem of fatness. And it's like, well, fat bodies have always existed and fat bodies will always exist. It's like,
Yeah.
that I'll say to clients, like, there's, trees just come in different shapes. And the
Yeah.
idea that these shaped trees are the wrong shaped trees is a bizarre idea, and so,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I just think I think it'll die out because it always does. But I do worry about people who, for whom shouldn't be taking them, and the replacement of the hormone that tells them that they are satiated is just a clinically induced way to have an eating disorder. And and
Yeah.
once they go off of them, I think it's not going to be great. I think it's going to be really messy for a while for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I think that's the bit that's just not talked about, is it? Because I think I
Yeah.
really agree with you as well. It's very nuanced, isn't it? I think for some people,
Yeah,
they've been so valuable tool, really, haven't they, as part of
absolutely.
everything. But yeah, I think I found some clients who perhaps were already underweight or
Yeah,
healthy weight for their body and taking them, and then get down to a very thin weight, actually become very malnourished, come off them, the food noise comes back, and then it's a
yeah,
really difficult place, isn't it? Really difficult place then.
right. Right, because your body doesn't care what you want it to look like. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? And your
exactly.
body doesn't care. And so if you've taken something that has convinced you that your body doesn't need nourishment, once you stop taking that thing, your body is like, oh, thank God. Like we're
Yeah,
gonna, just like any
exactly.
kind of starvation, So
Yeah.
I think it's gonna get, I think it's not going to be great for a lot of people. But I again, like I have
Mm,
clients who have found a lot of freedom with it, have
yeah,
figured out how to make it work for them, and so also great.
sure. Yeah, yeah. And then what
Yeah,
about, you were on the Jillian Michaels documentary
yeah,
thing, weren't you, recently?
yeah.
So how
That
did
was
you find
wild.
that, and what were your main sort of takeaways? Because that must have
Oh
been
my
such an
goodness.
experience.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was like, is Jillian Michaels famous in the UK? Do people know who Jillian Michaels is? But I suppose you will. I suppose everybody knows who Jillian Michaels is. Yeah, it was a very wild experience. I am not young, so I did not know about Jubilee Media or about the Surrounded series. I don't know anything about it. So I have a dear friend who actually works for Jubilee, and so uh, about I guess a year ago he texted me and was like, would you be on an episode of Surrounded with a health and fitness celebrity or something? And I immediately wrote back and was like, this is Jillian Michaels, isn't it? Because who else would describe themselves as that? And he wrote back, I cannot confirm nor deny. So I was like, sure, like I don't know what I'm getting into,
Yeah.
right? The experience itself was not fun. I wouldn't recommend that anyone
Sure.
do it. It was really weird. The best part, and this is what I wrote on social media, the best part was to be in the room with and connect with a lot of my fellows, a lot of my colleagues that I have looked up to and respected for years. There was like Tigris Osborne, who is the national director of the National Association for the um, advancement of fat acceptance. There was just really great people. So that part was great. And once some of my like heroes walked in the room, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be okay. But the actual experience of debating, and I'll put that in
Sure.
quotes, with Jillian Michaels was terrible. I mean, she wasn't there to listen to any of us. She wasn't actually
Sure.
interested in anything any of us had to say. So that part of it was frustrating, and just I have people in my life who don't necessarily feel as strongly as I do about body liberation and food liberation and fat acceptance. But very rarely am I face to face with somebody who is so adamantly biased and so adamantly cruel to people who live in large bodies. And that it was just,
Mm,
it was not. fun. It was not great.
Yeah, no, sure. No, I mean, I can imagine actually, because I was sort of thinking a bit about that and gosh, how would have I felt sort of being in your shoes? I think quite challenging.
It
Um,
was awful. And I didn't, it went the way they put it all together. I didn't actually go up to the weird little table until the very end because I didn't I didn't want to. I didn't want to sit in front of her and I didn't want to do the whole thing. So I went at the end and I'm glad I did and I'm glad I said what I said and I feel good about what I said and I felt good about, I kept thinking about all my clients in my head and like,
yeah,
if my clients watch this, I want to represent them well, right? I want to go up there and I want to say something that I can be proud of. That if they watch it, they know that I was there advocating for myself and for them. So I felt good about that. But no, it was not a fun time.
yeah. Another experience.
It was another experience. It was another experience. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was wild.
well done. I think we're flying the flag and you know.
Yeah, I felt like I was like, well, I'm gonna say what I need to say, and then that's it. And then she didn't hear one word any of us said. That's not why she was there.
Yeah, no, sure. I guess peace and love, isn't it? You did your bit.
Yep, right, right. I mean, she has so many things to sell, right? Like that's the part of it coming back to capitalism, right?
Yeah.
She has a brand to stay loyal to. She has things to sell. She's not there to actually talk to any of us.
Yeah, no, sure. Yeah, no. And I guess another thing I want to ask you as well, actually, just sort of side topic from this as well, is like I know you do a lot of sort of work with the
Hmm.
LGBTQIA plus community. Sorry, I
I
was
Yeah,
gonna.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
That's fun. Yeah,
yeah. And I just wanted to say as well, just a bit more kind of like vulnerabilities with food and body image
yeah,
as well, because I think I
yes.
guess many groups are vulnerable, aren't they? But I just wondered if you wanted to say a bit about that.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. I mean, I think that the most complicated clients I have well, under that umbrella are the trans community. I've had clients who are AFAB, assigned female at birth, and are either trans masculine or non-binary, leaning more towards masculine. And so the intersection of fat phobia, the culture's misogyny and hatred for femininity and their own desire to have a body that looks more masculine even though their biological sex is born the way they were born was in a female body. It's complicated, right? It's real messy in there. And I've had most of the time when I have clients like that, I will say like, look, there's no books written on this. I Google it once a month just to I hope somebody has written me a book for me to help. But and we sort of trudge through it together. And all of those clients that I've worked with have been so gracious and so generous to just let me mess up and say the wrong thing, and we move through it together because it is really complicated. Like I can't
Yeah.
support any starvation or disordered eating, but I do support their desire to feel more comfortable in their body as a
Mm.
trans person in the world. So that has been that has been complicated. I would love for someone to write a book on it so I can have some more information. But yeah, those are the folks that I feel really grateful to. They have been really lovely to me. But within that also is the gay male population. There's a lot
Mm.
of and sometimes and that's complicated too. I am a queer woman, but I'm not a gay male. So
Yeah.
they've also been really kind and gentle with me when working with the desire to for attractiveness on a masculine scale to affirm their queerness or their and again, I support that, and I don't support you harming your body, right? And so we have to like live in that paradox together a little bit, and it's hard. It's complicated.
Yeah, no, really complicated. And I think it's like, I think I found when I work with clients, just any kind of minority group in a way that's felt
Yeah,
different or not
yeah,
accepted, it's almost
yeah,
like I think that inner critic is louder, isn't it? Just like not just feeling there's
yes.
something wrong with me. And then again, it's just so put onto the body,
So
isn't it?
easy, right?
So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But and I have found that people who are in a marginalized group are quicker to understand the whole fat phobia thing in terms of the marginalization of fat bodies as a group. So it's
Yeah.
interesting, while it's more complicated within their own identity, they
Yeah.
do tend to understand it more of like, oh, this is just another group that the culture says is bad or wrong based on arbitrary traits like fatness, right? So they
Yeah.
do, it's a both and that it's more
Yeah.
complicated within their own journey, but they do tend to get the political social justice side of it a little bit more quickly because of their queerness or because of their sexual identity.
Sure. Yeah, they're really, really interesting actually, but it makes sense to you explaining
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Okay. So Paula, if people that are listening and watching want to
Yeah.
perhaps reach out to you and book a session with you, like read more about your work
Yeah.
or whatever, like where do they go? How do they find you?
Yeah, I would love that. So my
Mm.
website is Paula D as in David Atkinson, all one word, .com. It's the same on Instagram. I am Paula D Atkinson on Instagram. I am I think I'm P Atkinson on TikTok. I don't run my TikTok, so I always forget which one I am there. But if you can Google me, and I'm pretty easy to find. And if you want to watch that episode of Surrounded with Jillian Michaels, I do recommend you don't watch the whole thing. I don't think it's good for anybody's brain to watch the whole thing, but it does have like 8 million views right now. But
Oh,
that can be under the Jubilee Media on YouTube. Um, but yeah, again, don't watch the whole thing. It's not good.
sure. Okay, well, I'll put all the links in the show notes because I'm sure there will be,
Thank you.
people that are listening and watching that will really sort of resonate with your approach and want to reach out to you.
Oh, I appreciate that. That'd be great. It would be lovely to hear. I love all of my UK friends. Please reach out.
And are you able to work with people actually all over the world, or do you just have to work with people in your state, or is it how does that
Uh,
work?
I can work with people. There's different ways in which we can do coaching or
Yeah.
psychotherapy or things. But with my group, if you are interested in being a part of the group, I can work. Anybody can be in the group because that is not a psychotherapy group. It's basically just a support group. So if you're interested, if you live in a body that has been marginalized by the culture and you want to be a part, it's a really beautiful group. Um, and also, if you have any questions or anything else, I'd love to hear from people.
Sure. Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, thank you so much, Paula. It's been great to chat
Thank
to
you so
you.
much. Thanks for
And
having me. I appreciate
yeah,
it.
and perhaps hope to have you back on again at some point.
I'd love that. I'd really love that.
Okay, bye.